Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Now that my two obligatory informative videos are done for the day, including a lot of training footage from my bench pressing earlier today, it's time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. So let me put on my +5 out of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about something I've had a few people ask me about. I've seen all through my social media feed, people talking about Big Ramy got robbed at the Mr. Olympia. Phil Heath, he stole it from him. You know what? We go through this every year. And I want to make this clear up front because a bunch of people go, who's this guy talking about bodybuilding? He's not a bodybuilder. I'm not a bodybuilder. And I don't consider that an insult in any way. In fact, I'll take that as a compliment. I'm not a fan of bodybuilding. Anyone who's familiar with my work should know that by now. I'm not a fan of it. But I have been observing it for decades. 40 years old. I've been around the iron game a long time. You know what? This happens over and over and over. Every year. Some of you guys have only been following this a few years. You've only been around this a while. Maybe you don't remember that going all the way back to the whole Arnold Schwarzenegger days. This stuff has been debated. It's always Serge Nubret got the Mr. Olympia stolen from him by Arnold. It was stolen. He was cheated. He was robbed. It's going all the way back then. And what people need to realize, there's not really much difference between these guys. Let's just be honest here. I'm not a bodybuilding fan, but I have eyes. I have my glasses on. I have 20/20 vision with my glasses. I couldn't tell them apart. The photos I've seen come through Facebook feeds from people who were there who I knew, people posting their photos, they don't look any different. They look exactly the same. Exactly the same. Oh, maybe a middle muscle head's in a different place, one versus the other. They don't look any different. They don't. And they all look hideous. They all look hideous today. Here's what it comes down to. People have their personal favorites who follow this stuff. Bodybuilding fans do this. They believe that their guy is the best guy up there in something that's not a sport. Don't call it a sport because it's not. It's a beauty pageant. It's a beauty pageant. Not really about beauty anymore, but it's a beauty pageant. And politics actually play a bigger role in the judging criteria than the actual judging criteria do. And you guys need to keep in mind, this is a competitive endeavor in which the judging criteria are very loosely based. They're very hard to follow, hard to interpret. They clearly are not even enforced by the judges. They're not. Their own criteria are very, very clearly thrown out the window. And I'll give some examples of that in a minute. Perfect example is going to be sight enhancement. They were supposed to be scoring people down for using sight enhancement. No, they give them first, second, and third place every single year since they implemented that rule. You guys are all using tons of sight enhancement. Tons of synthol, tons of collagen. It's all up there. There's tons of sight enhancement, and they still give them wins. They hand them trophies. They hand them six-figure checks when they're supposed to be scoring them down for it. What about the distended guts? They all have guts. And everyone's up there. This guy doesn't. Yeah, he does. Every one of these guys has a big old insulin gut. Every single guy up there, no exception. Just because one guy has a smaller insulin gut than another doesn't mean he doesn't have one. Let me say that again. Just because one guy has a smaller insulin gut than another one doesn't mean that he doesn't have one. You know, it doesn't mean it's not there. Every single guy up there has one. And even guys who I see post a photo and say, this guy doesn't. Yeah, he does. What the fuck are you talking about? It's right there. It's right there in the picture. But some of them it's more pronounced than others. And here's the thing. You know why people pick their people? And I'll get to the minute with the judges, why they pick people. You know why people pick people? Because they all look pretty similar. There's no real difference. They pick them based upon something they like about their personality or something they have in common with the guy. I'm going to give you examples right now. Big Ramy. I see a bunch of guys online. They think Big Ramy got robbed because they share a religious belief with him. He's Muslim, they're Muslim. You know what? I know dudes who loved Ronnie Coleman just because he was from Texas. I'm from Texas. There were people who they loved Ronnie because he was a Texan. Born and raised in Texas. Therefore, they liked him whether he was going to win or lose. Didn't matter. They liked him because he's from Texas. There are guys who Branch Warren is, arguably by bodybuilding standards, didn't, again, has some problems. People loved him just because he was from Texas, who were from Texas, who followed this competitive endeavor. They were bodybuilding fans, okay? That's it. Dudes who loved Kai Green just because they saw his G4P stuff and maybe they, have an attraction to that. There are guys who loved Kai Green just because it was known that he did G4P. Alright? That's it. That was enough for them to like him. Where a person's born, having something in common, a hobby, maybe they vote for the same person you vote for and publicly admit it. Maybe they share a religious belief with you. They're born in the same region as you. People pick these guys based upon this other criteria. Maybe they're the same. The whole thing came up with Sergey Brand Arnold was about race. There was a big race debate about that back in the day. Alright? There's politics around all this stuff, and this is why people pick their favorites, and then they cling on to this person and they feel like they got robbed for their placings. It's a subjective judging criteria. And here's the thing. When these people go in and compete in it, they know it's subjective. They know there's politics involved. And anyone who decides, I want to be a fan of this, you know it's all politics. You knew that when you chose to enjoy this endeavor. When you chose to say, hey, I want to follow this. I want to be a fan of this type of competition. You knew it was all based on politics. It's not objective judging criteria. There's politics involved. And you know what? It's never robbing. If two guys look exactly the same, identical, and they were to be exact, perfect carbon copies of each other on stage, and you couldn't tell anything apart. But one of them has more sponsorships involved with the event, and there's more money associated with his name right now. Which one wins? Which one wins every single time, 10 out of 10 times, even if they're identical? Guy with more money. Guy with more sponsorships and money revolving around his name right now is going to win. Because there's money and politics involved. The judging criteria isn't particularly objective, but money is, politics is. In fact, even if the judges, and this has been known in endeavors like this, the reigning Mr. Olympia, there's millions of dollars in sponsorships and endorsements and everything else tied up around his name, including people who are paying for the event. If the other guy, based on their judging criteria, is only 2 or 3% better, guess what? Who wins every single time? The reigning Mr. Olympia. Why? Because money is lost if he gets dethroned. Alright, so he automatically gets a home field advantage. Okay? Automatically, by default, this is a political-based art contest. Okay, this is a performing art. Let me say that again. This is not a sport. This is a performing art. In a sport, you have specific judging criteria, and you always know who won or lost. If you're watching it and you know the rules of the sport, you know who won or lost watching it. All right, very clear. Bodybuilding doesn't have that because it's not a sport. It is a performing art with loosely based judging criteria. Yeah, there's scores and everything kept, but it's really difficult to follow. Okay, loosely based is a performing art, and there's money involved around this performing art. And if you choose to say I want to be a fan of it, then you have to be a fan of the judging criteria of the situation too, because that's what it has always been. All right, this endeavor at no point in your life has ever not had politics determine who wins and loses. Okay, that has been a factor your entire life, unless you're like 80 years old. If you're my age, 40 or younger, this has always been the case. That is always how it's judged. You knew that when you chose to start following it. So why are people getting butthurt about it now? It's always been that way, will always be that way, because it's not even a sport. It's a big glorified supplement contest to sell protein powders. That's what it's all about. You know what? And they're going to pick who they're going to pick because they think it'll sell the most protein powders and creatine and branched chain amino acids. That's who's going to be picked. All right? Bodybuilding and the supplement world are interconnected, and you cannot take them apart. Because without the con man snake oil supplement world, there would be no such thing as a bodybuilding show. They wouldn't exist. The Mr. Olympia wouldn't exist. That's who sponsors it. That's who pays for it. And you can be damn well sure, since they're footing the bill, these people are only concerned with who's going to make them the most money to be sitting in the spot. That's it. That's it. The only factor involved. So if you choose to follow this competitive endeavor, you understand that and accept that. It's not like it's something beautiful to look at. It's not like it's something attractive to look at. It's a freak show. They all look hideous. What the hell are you guys even talking about? You know it's a subjectively based freak show. All right, that's what it is. And you can't get all upset because your guy loses because you identify with him because of his skin color, his nationality, his religion, his politics, or his personality. Whatever it is that you happen to identify with this individual based upon. And that's usually the case with the fans. And it's not always those things. It's not always those external things. It can sometimes be something as simple as that person shares some other belief with you that you identify with, something you like about them. Okay? That's not the criteria by which this is judged. It never has been and is never going to be. So why get upset based upon that? It's not like your guy's not going to be dead in a few years anyways. All these guys die young. And there'll just be a new crop of them to kick in. They can pump full of drugs and that'll be the end of it. That'll be the end of it. And exactly, Big Ramy's a perfect example of that. That guy gained over 150 pounds in like 3 years. Went from a little tiny dude who didn't even lift to almost pro bodybuilder size in a very short period of time. You say, well, it's because he's from Egypt. Let's be honest here. It's not the first guy in the top 5 of the Mr. Olympia from Egypt, a small little country. Why? Because you can get really, really, really cheap high-grade anabolics in that country. One of the easiest countries in the world to get them. When I lived in the UK, Egyptian pharmaceutical grade anabolics were easy to get all the way up in the United Kingdom, and they were really, really cheap. Even that far away, over 1,000 miles away, that stuff was actually really inexpensive and easy to get. Egyptian made stuff, it was for pharmaceutical grade, was mind-bogglingly cheap, even 1,000 miles outside that country. Inside that country, it's literally like 1/20th of the cost of the black market stuff you're buying here right now. Okay, that's why it's real easy to get big in that country. It's the drugs, that's it. So that's why you got the Big Ramy guy. And you know what? If he kicks off and dies, there'll be another guy from Egypt ready to take his place. One guy with a little bit of money will sponsor some guy with some potential. He'll blow up, get used, he'll slip right in and replace him. Just like Nasser El Sinbadi. You know, he was a big monstrous freak from Egypt. Same reason. Of course, his health didn't make it very long. So there you have it, guys. This whole idea these guys are being robbed. No, they aren't. It's all politics anyways. And they know that. You know that. Are you just going to pretend like anyone's been robbed? Politics is the primary judging criteria. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.